Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Barron from Troy PD in Alabama, 30 plus years experience in law enforcement. He's a graduate of the FBI National Academy, has a master's in justice administration and a bachelor's in criminal justice. Welcome to the show, Chief Barron. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Had an opportunity to hear several other conversations with other chiefs, and I think it's always great to learn from each other.
Thank you. I appreciate you listening. And honestly, when I started the podcast, and it still is this way, but when I started the podcast, it was really just because I was having conversations with leadership and I was always hearing these I wish statements, and it was always wellness related. It was like, man, I wish I would have known this, or I wish I would have done this. And I was like, man, how can we share that with other people? And originally it was, how can we share with the younger generation? How can we allow them to learn from you guys and maybe not make some of the same mistakes or, to learn lessons that you guys have to pass on to them. And now, as the podcast has evolved, we have a lot of leadership who are trying to learn from each other. And that's been really cool. And it wasn't something that I anticipated in the beginning. It was all focused on younger generation. But now I hear stories of other chiefs being like, wow, like I learned this from this chief. And like, they're doing this in wellness and we didn't know. And, I think it's been a really, really cool evolution. So I'm really grateful to be here and I'm so happy that you agreed to be on here with me.
Thank you for what you're doing. Any time we get a chance, or I get a chance to speak well or speak about my profession and the people that do this profession day in and day out, I jump at the chance. Certainly, some of the people that you've had on your podcast, or they've done it a long time, and I don't profess to have all the answers. But one thing that I have been good at over the years is I'm not always the smartest guy in the room, but I know a good answer, and I know a good idea when I hear one. And
Yeah.
I understood a long time ago of how important it is to take care of yourself physically and mentally in this job. And I had to learn that hopefully most officers learn that at a young age. And that's one reason why I've been able to stay at it as long as I have, is because I have taken care of those things spiritually first, and physically, second. And it's so important for longevity in this line of work.
100%. Two things that you said just now that I think is really important to kind of revisit is one, this idea of being a constant learner, and being like, hey, I might not have all the answers. And to hear someone who's at the top of an organization, like you've made it, you're at the pinnacle of your career, and for you to say, I don't know everything, but I can sure as heck learn from other people and I can recognize a good idea and I can continue to grow within, the role and capacity that I have now, I think is so important. And I've always told everybody this. I think the biggest flex is to be teachable and to continue to learn.
Right.
And sometimes we get stuck in our own ways, as we get older or as we, progress in our careers where we do think that we know it all. And there's maybe some ego attached to that. And I'm definitely guilty of this in my past. But if you can get to a point of humility and understand that just because you don't know everything does not mean that you're not effective. It does not mean that you're not great at what you do. It just means that you have the capacity to evolve and to be even better, I think is, like I said, the biggest flex that anyone can have. And then the other thing that you said is an emphasis on proactive wellness, learning early on the importance of these things for longevity in the career, but also in your own personal lives. And one of the things that I'm noticing a lot with the younger generation, and I have a lot of conversations with chiefs about this, where they're like, yeah, the younger generation, they have more buy-in and, they're more receptive to these things. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. It's obviously been a part of the conversation from day one, where with you guys, maybe it wasn't, but what I'm also seeing is that, and we're all guilty of this too, the younger generation, they're more receptive to it, but also like they don't think that they need it yet because they don't hurt yet,
Mhm.
or, they haven't been through a ton yet. And so it's how can we continue to have these conversations and put forth resources that are proactive, where they understand that today is the day to start these things so that you don't get to that point where you have injuries or, um, back pain or, these things that we can reduce the risk of. How can we have those
Right.
proactive conversations?
Yeah, or wait till your life really depends on you being in good enough shape. It hit
Yeah.
me one night, working night shift. My diet pretty much at night, and I hate to say this, but would be to stop at a convenience store and maybe pick up some little Debbie donuts and a Coca-Cola or a coffee. And, in your early 20s, you think, I'm good. You don't pay any attention um, you know, to your diet as much. You don't have to. But it didn't take long before it started to catch up to me.
Yeah.
And I felt like, well, I needed to be strong in order to do this job. And strength certainly has its place. You do need to be strong. But my cardio was horrible. And I got in a foot chase with a guy one night, and I chased him probably, I don't know, 100, 150 yards up a hill in front of one of our local bars, and it was an all-out sprint. And for whatever reason, I wasn't going out on the radio, so none of the other officers could hear what I was doing. And
Mm,
I'm steadily giving them locations, and nobody's paying any attention to what I'm saying. And I caught the guy, and I remember when I caught up to the guy, thankfully he was just as in bad a shape as I was. Because when I tried to pull him out of the woods, I fell down, and I remember I literally it took all I could do to get back on my feet. And
mm,
if he had been in any kind of shape, I was in trouble. And thankfully, there was some local college students that actually pulled up and helped me with the guy. And I don't know what happened with my radio, but after that night, that woke me up. I said, I've got to start taking my fitness more serious.
wow.
And one thing that we're seeing today is a lot of our younger generation, they're coming in their early 20s and they can't pass the PT test. They can't for Alabama, you got to be able to run a mile and a half in 15 minutes and 28 seconds. And that's about an average of a 10-minute mile, which
Mhm.
is not that fast. And there are a lot of people that can't do it, and it's sad. They can't do the push-ups, they can't do the sit-ups, and so they're coming in and they're applying, and they may pass the background, and then we get them out to do the PT test, and then they can't pass it. And so we're really starting to look at ways that maybe even before we have officers come in, um, partnering with a local business here in town called Performance First, and they're wanting to help us and maybe have days where people come in if they're interested in policing, they haven't applied yet, and they come in and just hang out with the officers and hang out with the people from Performance First, and they can tell them, hey, this is what you need to do to get yourself in shape,
Yeah.
and maybe test them to see where they're at and talk to them about the importance of a good diet and just taking care of their body. They even talk about the mental side of it as well. And so we're looking more and more at that these days. When I was a young officer and started, it was, hey, here you go. You need to be able to run, you need to be strong, but nobody really told you what that looked like and go to work. And so it's certainly we've come a long way since that time.
Well, I definitely think we've come a long way. And, I've been in this law enforcement wellness space for 9 years, and it's totally different today than it was when I first started. And it's a part of the conversation. And agencies are doing things for academy and post academy and in service. And it's like a part of that progression. One of the things that I've noticed, though, I don't know if you're seeing this, but 9 years ago versus now, the younger generation is tighter. They're not as mobile. And that to me is really interesting. I'm starting to notice it. And I don't know if I have my guesses that it's more just sedentary lifestyle
Mhm.
that, like when we were kids, we didn't have all of the, technology and electronics. And, we would go out and, we'd be
You had to go
running
outside and
around and
find things to do.
playing and
Yeah,
yeah, and it was like come home when the street lights come on and and we didn't sit for long periods of time.
right.
So I'm noticing that they're tighter. And one of the things, because part of what I do is injury prevention, right? So we talk a lot about, of course, fitness is important and working out is important, but I have a coach that put this in perspective. I thought it was a really cool way of putting it. They said, your body is like a computer And if the inside has water damage, then it's not going to function in the way that it needs to. And it said, like, if you on the outside, you look good, you got muscles, like you work out, you look good. But if you aren't mobile, you're not functioning in the way that you're supposed to or you need to. And so
Right,
it's how can we take a look at the full picture? And I love that you talked about nutrition, you talked about the mental side of things, mobility, physical fitness, spiritual wellness. How can we take a look at the full picture of what wellness looks like? And how can we dissect the what, the why, the how, so that people can get on board and start taking those steps in that direction, because I think sometimes we think so singularly of like, okay, well, wellness is physical fitness, and yes, it is, and that's an important
right,
piece of it, but it's only one piece of it. How
right.
can we look at the full picture? And so I'm excited about the future. I think it's going to be really cool to see how things evolve over time. But I think even though there's more receptiveness, we're still having the question of how do we get people to do it? How do we get
Yeah,
people to take action for themselves?
yeah. That's where the rubber meets the road, I guess, because it's so easy to say, and I'm so thankful for, for people like you that have taken an interest in law enforcement, in our first responders. I'm sorry, in our first responders, and anytime really, if I want to get online, I can get online and look and see, okay, these are the things that I need to do as a first responder. These are the mobility I need to have. This is the workout I should be doing. I mean, with AI today, you can get on there and track your diet and things like that. But then when it comes down to it and you've got to do it, it takes discipline.
Hmm.
And so I guess instilling and teaching those officers how to do the things that you don't want to do, or being able to keep yourself from doing the things that you're not supposed to do, right? And
Yeah.
so you got to make yourself get off the couch. You got to make yourself get out of that police car, maybe and walk and get your steps in and walk around and be seen. And sometimes it takes maybe our leadership setting the example and letting them see the leadership live that kind of lifestyle too, and promote that in shift changes. And hey, how was your workout today? How did it go? How's your diet? Are you on point with your diet? Is there anything you need help with? We started here an app. It's called Telegram. I'm sure you've heard of that, and we've used Telegram for many different things. We started out using it for law enforcement purposes. We're sending out bolos and things like that, but now we've used it. And I call it Troy Strong, and I not only use it for police but also our firemen. And anybody that wanted to join, they can join and they can get on there. And I've encouraged them whenever you do your workout, like this afternoon when I get ready to go over to the gym and work out. I'll post my workout at the end. And it's really more so for the officers that are maybe just getting started and they don't really know what to do. And you can kind of post, hey, this is what I did. This was my workout. Maybe I just did a 1 mile or 2 mile walk today. I'll post a 2 mile walk, and you'll get responses back from the officers, and the other officers are actually doing that too. And maybe I'm hoping that will motivate some of the other officers that maybe don't want or like to work out as much, to push them to get involved in it. And we're looking at its incentives and nothing more sometimes than maybe just posting your name on a bulletin board that, hey, you worked out so many days this month, and or maybe have a T-shirt, something just to show that, hey, it's important to us. Maybe a pin to go on their uniform to say that, that says Troy Strong, that they have to earn. Uh, to get them motivated to do what they need to do to take care of themselves. So does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, I think there's always going to be a multifaceted approach when it comes to, I hate to say motivation, because I agree with you. I think it's discipline. But how do we motivate people to have the discipline? And
Yeah.
everyone's going to be different. And some people are going to want those incentives. Some people
Mhm.
want time off or the pin or money or whatever. I talked to a lot of agencies that are looking at a lot of different things. I had one chief say it was really interesting. I've never heard anyone else say this. He was the only one that said this, but he said in their policy, they don't allow facial hair. It's just like a part of their agency. They don't allow it. It's not a part,
We don't either.
Um,
Yeah,
but he is using that as an incentive for wellness. So saying, hey, if you want a mustache or a beard, you can do it, but you gotta do this wellness stuff. So everyone who's walking around with a beard, you know that they were the ones that took the initiative so
yeah.
I think people are getting
That's interesting.
creative.
I've never thought of that. That's an interesting idea because
Yeah.
that's the seems to be the fad these days with our younger officers. They want to grow a beard,
Yeah.
and so we've always kind of took a hard stance that no, we want to look clean shaven. We want to look,
Mhm.
clean and those kind of things. So I get both sides of it. It's personal preference for me, but
Sure.
I if it would work for officers to take better care of themselves, I would certainly be interested in,
Yeah.
that would be a thought anyway, something to think about. But
Yeah, I think it's just like, how can we have the conversation? And maybe that's not the solve or, the
yeah,
next step for you guys. But I think a lot of people are trying to ask, how can we get more creative? What is actually going to encourage action? What are people interested in? What are
right,
those incentives? But then also, I think what you said, there's positive peer pressure. Maybe people are sharing these things. You're seeing everyone around you be more active, and therefore you want to be more active. So it's a domino
right,
effect that happens from positive peer pressure. Maybe it's leadership who are even just sharing the stories that you shared with me earlier of like, yeah, I was young. I wasn't really focusing on my wellness. I had this incident where it could have gone real bad real quick.
right,
And I think the more we're able to kind of attack it from different angles, the more people we're gonna start to get motivated because everyone's gonna be motivated by different things. And there's always going to be a group of people within the organization that are go-getters. They're gonna do it. You don't really have to worry about them. I think most of us and the conversations are around the other subset of people. How do we get
yeah,
the other group of people who aren't as likely to get off the couch, who aren't as likely to focus on their nutrition or their fitness to take action? What does that look
right,
like? So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's, it's if you can come up with ideas of that would help me in doing that, we're constantly brainstorming and trying to think of ways to get those officers that just aren't interested, to get them interested in their physical fitness, short of just saying that you've got to do it and making them do it. We even allow them on duty, a time on duty to go work out and encourage them to go do that. We have our own gym, and it's not a huge gym, but it's a pretty nice gym in our firehouse, and which is just across the street from the police department, and they can go work out at any time. Our um, athletic director here, a recreation director, has said, look, if they want to come use the rec, they can use it for free. And
Yeah.
so they have opportunities to go. It's just now getting them to get to the gym. The people that really took an interest in the Troy Strong are those that already work out.
Mhm.
And so of course they were happy to get on there and post their workouts, and then it become a competition, who's doing the most, and those kind of things. So it's the ones that you're really trying to push that direction. They're still kind of quiet on there, but
Sure.
eventually we'll get there. And I think the key is just to continue to encourage and live by example. If you're gonna preach to them how important it is to be healthy, I think it starts with me,
Mm.
and they've got to see me doing the same things and see me posting the same things. And it's got to be my captains that are doing the same things, that are overseeing these different divisions, and the lieutenants and so on. And especially, those officers out there, a lot of our special assignments, like our SWAT team, our special enforcement unit, we're working crime prevention in certain areas in town. We've got fitness tests for those guys, and so if they want to be on those units, they have to be able to pass that fitness test. But a lot of times, it's those officers that aren't necessarily interested in fitness aren't as interested in those types of roles either. They're interested in some of the other roles within the department. So
Yeah.
it's
Well, I agree that it's going to take time. And I think every single chief that I've talked to is asking that same question of like, how do we do it? And I think it's a little bit of trial and error, but it sounds like you guys have that circle of influence that's already really active. And so I think that will start to spread over time. Again, like positive peer pressure, always, lead
Yeah,
by example. But the one thing you mentioned a couple times that I'm really curious about is you said the importance of leadership leading by example, and you said that's you and everyone underneath you from a command staff level. How do you get buy-in from leadership to spread the same message to then continue, um, moving forward when it comes to wellness?
yeah. Um, this is a smaller agency. I have a 56 man department. My captains, we have pretty much come up through the ranks together.
Mm.
And so actually one of my captains is my workout partner. We work out together on a daily basis, whether we're in the weight room or whether we're running. And so and another captain that's over patrol was one of my young officers when I was a lieutenant. And he saw me as a lieutenant, and he's always been interested in fitness as well. And even the other two captains that don't have as much buy-in, but they do. That I mean, they're really trying because they see me and they see the other two captains, and they understand and they realize that it's important for what they do because we're all close to the same age.
Mhm.
We're all in our early to mid 50s. And so we understand the importance of staying in shape just for longevity too, and for our health and those kind of things. We see the end of the road coming here in our career, and we see, old age just right around the corner. And so to me, it's just as important to be able to go outside with my grandkids and enjoy walking around and staying fit. So I think it's the same thing with them as they see me, and we really feed off of each other. We've come up through the ranks together, and we're competitive, and we'll poke at each other a little bit and good fun. But everybody's got a competitive spirit about them, and so I got one captain that doesn't necessarily go to the gym and lift weights, but he plays racquetball and
Mm.
he's very good at it. He's tried to get me to play racquetball with him, and I won't do it because I know he's going to embarrass me. So 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 we've got that going back and forth, and I think that just it does trickle its way down. And if we're happy here together every day, and we're taking care of ourselves, and I think people see that we get along, we work well together, and when we leave, we meet every morning. When we leave our command staff meetings, we're all on the same page. We may disagree with each other in the command staff meeting, but when we leave, we're all on the same page. And
Yeah.
I've never worried about them spreading that message. That's never been a problem here.
I love that. That's great. Because, I've had conversations with other leaders where it's not that way. And it's really hard to make any adjustments in culture or to build forward progress when everyone isn't on the same page. So I love that you guys are so close knit. One of the things that I heard recently that I thought was really interesting and it put things in perspective for me because a lot of times I think that change or stepping out of your comfort zone, trying something new, it can be kind of scary. There's maybe a little bit of fear to that. And you even said it, you're like, I don't want to do it because I don't want to be embarrassed. And
Mhm.
I have a lot of conversations with people who are not as active and a lot of it is that it's uncomfortable. It could be kind of scary. You don't
Yeah,
maybe know what to do. You don't want to embarrass yourself in front of other people. And so then you don't take action at all because you're so
right.
afraid of all of these things. But I heard this saying and it said, um, the fear of, and I'm going to end up butchering this. It was something along the lines of the fear of change or discomfort is far less than the reality of regret. And I was like, wow. To me, I was like, that is like that hit me because I'm like, yeah, like we're so afraid sometimes to
Hmm.
try new things and to put ourselves out there and to maybe fail, like it's okay
Right.
to go into a gym and suck. Like, who
Yeah.
cares, you
Yeah.
know? Like, but I understand that feeling of like intimidation.
Because we've all been there. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and that's what I try to tell our younger officers. Look, you're not going to grow if you don't step outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
For me, public speaking for the longest, I was scared to death. You
Hmm.
wouldn't have caught me doing this because I would have gotten upset to my stomach. Before I get in a crowd, I would get just physically sick. And I had a mentor of mine that goes to church with me and continued to push me to teach classes, and that has been so beneficial for me. And um, I know for the longest martial arts, I was so interested in jujitsu, and I finally said, you know what? Because a friend of mine, the guy that I work out with, had said, "Hey, I signed up for jujitsu class. So I'm going to go take it with you." And but I was always so scared to do it because I said I'm going to go in there and these young guys are going to laugh at me because I'm going to be so terrible at it.
Yeah.
And I was terrible, but I didn't get laughed at. I think they respected the fact that I was in my 40s then going in there with these younger guys, and I grew so much
Hmm.
from that. And so you've got to be willing to step outside of your comfort zone and try new things, and you're not going to grow physically, spiritually, mentally as a person if you're not willing to do those things. So, and that's if you're gonna find yourself in a position like this, you better be willing to step outside of that comfort zone. And like you said, you're gonna fail. It's gonna happen. So, and that's fine.
Yeah, everyone that you see that's really good at something really sucked at that same thing when they
Mm.
started. There's
Yeah.
nobody who starts jujitsu and is amazing at it. It's a learning curve, you know? And
Mm.
I think for me, like that last part of it of like, well, the reality of regret is so much bigger, you know? We want to get to the end of this thing with as few regrets as possible. You know, we don't want to be like, man, I wish I would have done that. Or man, you know, maybe if I would have prioritized my wellness, maybe I wouldn't have as many surgeries, or maybe I'd be able to run around with my grandkids or
Right.
whatever that looks like. And so failure is a necessary component of growth and success. It just is. Every single person that's successful has also failed probably 100 times more than they've succeeded.
Absolutely.
And so, how do we have that mindset of like, you know, I would rather fail today and grow and be better than later down the road regret not doing these things. And 80%, there's actually studies that show this 80% of what we worry about never ever happens. So for you to be like, yeah, like I was afraid that I was going to be the old guy and get laughed at, that never happened. You walked in and people were like helping you out, you know? And so
Mm.
80% of what we worry about and what we think is going to happen never happens. It's
Yeah.
not the reality of it. And so, yeah, we just have to sometimes just jump, just do it. Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's like rip the band-aid off and just go. And then if you hate it, or if it came to like a reality where everyone's laughing at you and that's not the space for you, at least you know. And you're
You
not going to
tried
get
it.
to the end of this life and be like, what if I would have done that jujitsu class, you know?
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier you had a mentor. Can you talk a little bit about how mentorship has impacted you in your career and how important you think mentorship is to wellness and longevity within your profession?
Yeah. Yeah. Mentorship is huge for me. I'm always going to talk about my faith. And so for me to last, I think as long as I have in this profession, it's because I've had a strong faith. Now it's wavered at times. I've gone through, I've gone into the valleys and been on the mountaintops, but um, my minister, never gave up on me. And I, obviously he saw something in me, and not just my minister, but leaders here in this department, the chief at that time, Anthony Everidge, when I was a young officer, obviously he saw in me sometimes things that I didn't see in myself, and he put me in positions. My minister put me in positions, and I kept telling him no. He would ask me, "Why don't you come teach this class?" I'm not good enough to teach class. well, why don't you just do this? No, I don't think I'm good enough to do that. And I finally told myself, who am I saying no to? Okay. For me, am I telling him no or am I telling God no? Because obviously God kept putting this guy in my life and wanted me to teach a class
Mhm.
or wanted me to preach a lesson. And I've done all those things since then. Had I not listened to him and thought so highly of him, and had he not um, invested in me, there's no way I would be where I'm at today. Because doing those things actually led me into, it goes right into what I do now. And the fact that I've been able to promote in the police department, you got to do a written test, you got to go through oral review boards. So you got to be able to talk and communicate with people. And so you got to feel comfortable enough to do that. And had I not had my minister get me to get up in front of people, I didn't realize that was going to help me in my job as well. And then had I not had a chief, you know, decide, hey, I want to put you over investigations. And I reminded him, I said, Chief, that I've never been a detective. I've come up through the ranks in patrol. He said, well, you know how to lead people and you'll do fine. And he put me there and I was scared to death because it was out of my comfort zone because I'd never worked in investigations. But I did it because I thought so highly of him too. And so without those mentors and people that invest in you, you don't get where you're at by yourself.
Yeah.
Anybody that tries to tell you or they think, well, I got here, look what I've done. No, you haven't done anything. You've just been a willing participant, but people have invested in you to get you to where you're at. I'm here because of, so many people I couldn't begin to name them to say that this is why I'm where I'm at. I've got a good mayor here that has invested in me, that's believed in me, our council. We've really got a good city here in Troy. We've got good leadership from the mayor to our council all the way down. And I know not every agency, not every city has that. And so mentorship is huge. And so that's something we've tried to do here is to be a little bit more intentional
Mhm.
about the mentorship. And we've opened it up where our younger officers, if they're interested in investigations or they're interested in narcotics or they want to be on the SWAT team, we give them an opportunity to actually ride along and work alongside people from within that division so they can see, hey, is this something I'm really interested in? And so and I think it's been beneficial for us because we've been able to find people with really good skills in investigations where if we weren't doing this mentorship program, we may have never found them.
Yeah.
So it's huge, I think.
Well, it sounds to me that someone saw potential in you that you didn't see in yourself, pushed you out of your comfort zone. You had the courage to say yes eventually to do
Mhm.
these things. You learned skills that have helped to progress you in your life and your career. And now you have the ability to pay it forward. And you can
Right.
see qualities in other people that maybe they don't recognize. And you can create an environment within the organization that helps to develop them in different skills that maybe are outside of their comfort zone that are going to help them to progress in their careers and their lives. So I really do believe that everything in life is cyclical. Everything comes full circle, and we just have to be aware enough to understand it, and then we have to be willing to put in the effort. But I love that story of someone believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Then
Mhm.
I had the courage to believe in myself and to step outside my comfort zone. And now I'm doing that for other people, and then they're going to do it for other people. And it's going to be this cyclical thing that happens, and it's going to be a ripple effect long term.
Right. Because and I've always been told this, and it's true. Good leaders, you better be training the people behind you to do your job. You want to basically work your way out of a job.
Yeah.
You've got to have people that's going to be able, because I'm not going to do this forever. And when I retire and leave this department, I want to know that there are people behind me that are prepared and ready to come in and do this job when I leave. And so that's so important. And if we're not teaching each other, if we're trying to hoard all the information we get because we're scared somebody's going to come in and take it from us, then what good are we doing people? We're not doing anybody good, but maybe ourselves. And really, we're hurting ourselves because how do you build relationships if you're trying to keep everything to yourself, and you
Yeah.
don't want to see other people grow.
I agree. And I've actually talked about this on the podcast before. It is one of my biggest pet peeves when people feel like it's a zero-sum game and they want to hold everything like their cards close to their chest at the
Right.
detriment of everyone around them. There's so much room and space for us all to succeed. And yeah, things are competitive. And if you're worried that someone's going to come take your job, maybe you should be improving yourself and you should be trying to be better. You
Yeah,
should be
absolutely.
continuing to improve. But I've said this before. One of my mentors actually told me this, and I know it sounds really aggressive, but I'll explain the meaning behind it. He said, give them everything and beat them anyway. And I really liked it because it's like, hey, like the meaning behind it is share your secrets, help people grow, build them up, teach them, develop them, like give them everything and still strive to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Still be the best at what you do. Those things can exist at once. And I actually think it makes you better. It makes you more of an expert. People are going to respect you more. They're going to want to come to you. And you want people to come up behind you and be better than you. That's the
Absolutely.
goal. And if you had a small piece of their development and allowing them to be the best versions, even if that means they're better than you, how rewarding is that as a person to like look back and be like, yeah, I helped that person and they're excellent. It doesn't mean that you're less than or you're not excellent.
Right.
And so it is one of my biggest pet peeves. And we've all been around those people that are like, mine, and like don't care about anybody else. And those people don't have the same sort of respect or community around them as the people who are willing to invest time and energy into helping people succeed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If they're not learning from you, they're going to go get it from somewhere else. So
Yeah.
why not get it from you? Why not get it from me? And what they don't know is I'm probably learning so much more from them than they are from me at the same time. You know,
Yeah.
we we're all stronger together, and that's what I try to teach our team. I mean, we are all stronger together. You don't want me by myself trying to make every decision because at some point I'm going to mess it up. But
Mhm.
if I've got my team there with me in the room, I feel pretty confident because they're really good at what they do. And I couldn't do this job without them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And those people are still probably coming for your job, whether they learn from you or someone else.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
but it
Absolutely.
doesn't mean that just by not sharing with someone, they're not coming after your job. Like things are
Yeah.
still competitive. I think you should always, no matter what, always be operating like someone's coming for your job. There's always going to be someone hungrier, younger, smarter, better than you. And the moment you let off that gas, they're going to pass you up. So, like, how can you continue to develop other people while also developing yourself and not reach a point of stagnation? And I think it's hard as we start to get older, maybe a little bit more tired,
Yeah.
or maybe you start to reach pinnacles of your career and you're like, I've made it.
Yeah, if you're not
So
careful, that's what happens too. Being from Alabama,
mhm.
huge Alabama fan, also a Troy fan, go Trojans. But being an Alabama fan, Nick Saban, and one of his biggest things is, he made it to the top. When you get to the top, how do you stay there?
Mhm.
And it's the same thing I think anywhere in this line of work. When you get to where when you make the chief position, you get here and you think, well, I've arrived, I've made it. Well, then how do you stay there? How do you continue to grow?
Mhm.
And if you just get here and you sit on your laurels, then it's not going to be long before you're going to be leaving. And then what have you done for the department? What
Mhm.
have you done to make this place any better? Have you done anything other than just, hey, I made it here to the chief's position and I just coasted? So I think you got to strive every day for that perfection. And it's not human nature because it's hard every day to get up and go to work and say, I'm going to give my 110% today,
Yeah.
day in and day out. And I think when you get tired and burn out and you're not ready to do that anymore, then it's time to let somebody else come in and pick up where you left off.
Well, I think this is all kind of circles back to why wellness is so important. We're all going to reach those points where we feel burnt out no matter what. Hopefully it's a short period of time where you're just like, man, I need a vacation or I need a little bit of a break. But
Right.
When you do get to those pinnacles and when it comes to staying there, you have to continue to focus on your wellness too. It's proactive wellness no matter where you are in your career. How do you continue to lean into your faith? How do you continue to focus on your physical and your mental wellness, your nutrition, all of the things? It's never a destination, it's always a journey, and those things are going to look different. Obviously, someone who's in their 20s, brand new on the job, their wellness is going to look different than someone who's close to retirement. The things that you do are going to change and evolve, but it's never an arrival. You
Right.
didn't just get somewhere and then you stop. How do you continue to focus on those things so that you can continue to have a successful career? And then when you retire, you have your health intact, you have your family intact, and you can, hopefully step into that next chapter and
Yeah.
have success. So, I think it's important wherever you are, whoever's listening, whatever role within the organization you have, however old you are or young you are, that there's an emphasis on proactive wellness and you continue that through dedication and routine over time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said.
Thank you. My last question is for that younger generation. Tomorrow's leaders, what words of wisdom would you share with them that maybe you wish you would have known when you were younger?
Well, I had an opportunity to be the keynote speaker at a graduation not long ago, and my 3 points were W.I.N, win, right? And I look back at that, and it holds true today. And if young officers would remember this, never forget that the W stands for why. Never forget your why. Because when you go into this line of work, I mean, you're passionate, you're hungry, you want to make a difference. Um, for me, it was the excitement of I want to chase the bad guys. I want to catch criminals. For some people, it's I want to make a difference in other people's lives. Maybe they had a bad situation in their younger childhood where a police officer stepped in and helped them, and their why is they want to pay that forward. Whatever that W is, whatever that Y is, hold on to it because in this career is tough, and life is tough, and you're going to see a lot of bad things in this career. You're going to see people on their worst days. You're going to work a lot of overtime. It's going to be a lot of late nights, and so you better not forget why you're doing this during that time. If you do, you're going to reach burnout. And the second is your eye, iron. Iron sharpens iron. Okay. And I think it's important for you to have these conversations like you and I are having right now and surround yourself with people that are going to make you better.
Mm.
Surround yourself with people that are smarter, that are stronger, that are better officers than you are. And then when you come to work every night, those are the people you're looking at. I want to be like that officer. If you surround yourself with the negative officers, with the officers that are already burnt out, with the officers that have terrible diets, that they don't work out, guess who you're going to become like? You're going to become just like those officers. So hang out with people that are going to make you better and have another group of friends too, not just officers. For me, it's been my spiritual walk, my family, my church family, those people that I can disconnect from the job and get away and spend time with them, and they're going to make me better. They're going to hold me accountable, and so that's your eye. Iron sharpens iron. Hang out with people that are going to sharpen you and make you stronger. And then the N is your name, right? You don't forget who you are.
Mm.
When you start this job, you're going to start, and you're going to have your name on that piece of paper that says you graduated the police academy. You're going to take that name with you throughout your career. So do you want when somebody hears the name Barron, my name, or do they hear, oh, hey, that's a guy of integrity. He's an honest guy. He's a fair guy. He's going to treat you right. So you're building that name every day. And it doesn't take but one bad mistake to ruin your name. So protect your name. So those are the three things I would tell people to remember. Remember your why. Remember iron sharpens iron. Careful who you're hanging out with and who you're getting advice from, and your name. protect your name because it's always going to be with you. And it also not only represents you since you put this badge on, but you're also representing everybody that wears this badge and that has gone on and built this career to where it's at before you. Never forget that.
Wow. I loved that answer. That was great. Thank you so much for your time and coming on here today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Paige.
Of course. We'll talk soon.